Has Tyler Van Dyke solidified himself as the starting quarterback for the Wisconsin Badgers?
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, Badger fans? Welcome to Locked On Badgers, your team every single day. Stoked to be here with you. Honored to be part of this community that we're building together. I'm your host, Ryan Harings. Thank you for tuning in. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. This summer, FanDuel's hooking up everybody with Booster Bonus Daily. Just head over to FanDuel.com to get started. They are the official sportsbook of Major League Baseball and the official sportsbook of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you so much for tuning in. Let's talk about the practice we just saw. So a lot of scrimmaging, close to the media. I was able to be there. A couple really interesting things. I think you got to start with the big one, though, right? We talked about it for a while. It felt like it's been trending in this direction. Tyler Van Dyke got all the reps with the ones. And what did Luke Fickell say over the summer? What did he say in spring? I mean, he basically said you'll see, someone start to get more of those one reps. We're not going to announce a starter. And after practice, Luke Fickell, I'm going to be super careful and fair with this. He didn't say Tyler Van Dyke's the starter. He said, the plan was to get Tyler more of the one reps and to work a few other things in. But it certainly feels like that wheel is in motion. And again, he got all the one reps, and it feels like that decision's been made unofficially. And I think they had to do it, right? You're only a couple weeks out from the season starting. I think it's time to start really preparing with whomever you think is going to be in the very best spot to win ball games. You got to start giving them the one reps. You got to go start getting them the lion's share of those reps so they can start fine tuning. What does this mean? How did Tyler Van Dyke look today? How does he look the last week? I thought, to his credit, and we're going to get into the pass rush here in a second and kind of what the offensive line looked like. To his credit, it feels like Van Dyke played a pretty safe practice in a practice that had a lot of pressure, in a practice that had a lot of people around his feet, had issues in the pocket. He took care of the ball. He generally took care of the ball, which is what you need. A couple really nice throws. It was a tough sledding against the number one defense, which we'll talk about. It wasn't the cleanest offensive practice, but again, it felt like the big question with Van Dyke is, and has been, will he protect the ball? Will he avoid that one kind of back-breaking throw, those two back-breaking throws that can just lose a game, quite frankly? And he did today. They didn't connect on some of the deep throws. I think the coverage was pretty good. The linebackers played well, but he protected the ball. And conversely, you look at Tyler Van Dyke, and Van Dyke had an early interception to Owen Arnett. Owen Arnett undercut a slant route, and it probably would have been a pick six. Those are the throws that I think Van Dyke has done a pretty good job of avoiding, whereas Locke has made a couple of those mistakes this practice. I think I said Van Dyke threw the pick. It was Locke that threw the pick on the slant to Owen Arnett. So again, I thought Van Dyke had it wasn't his best practice. They missed on a couple deep throws again. He did hit a nice shot to Vinny Anthony that might have been out of bounds. That was on, I think, Nizer Forkran, I believe. That was a nice throw. He had a couple nice throws across the middle, which he's done a really good job of doing. They also tried to get the running game going. Van Dyke, again, a couple times using his legs to pick up yardage. Not as prolific as we've seen earlier in some of these other practices where he was really gashing it. He did have one really nice run along the right-hand side. But for the most part, the defense bottled him up. But he also didn't make the throws that make you tear your hair out. It was kind of a live to play another day type of practice from Van Dyke. And then when the twos came on, so that was ones versus ones. When the twos came on, Van Dyke started dicing it up. Van Dyke and the passing offense started dicing it up. Found Pauling immediately up to the right side, picked up a big gain after the catch. Had a couple nice throws to Tretch after that. He really started cooking in that stretch of sequences. And again, the arm strength has always been there. It's always, to me, it's just always been about consistency, decision-making. Can you avoid the bad throw? I thought he did that pretty good today for the most part. So I'm not surprised. I'm actually a little surprised it took them this long to kind of shift those number one reps over to Tyler Van Dyke. Locke had moments. He moved the ball pretty well with his feet a couple times. He's not a great athlete, but he's not bad either. Has a good enough arm. There were a couple really nice throws from Locke. Locke had a really nice touchdown to Jackson McGowan. Scrambled, bought some time, rolled out to the right-hand side, found McGowan break free in the end zone in some red zone drills, hit him for a touchdown. Locke had maybe one of the prettiest throws of the day early on through this deep fade to CJ Williams in the end zone when they were doing some red zone drills for a touchdown. So he had moments, and I think you come out of this feeling pretty good about if Locke's your backup quarterback. That's better than a lot of backup quarterbacks, I think, in the country. So I think you feel pretty good about the quarterback spot. It's not perfect, but I think you feel pretty good about it. And I think this got to the point everybody thought it was getting to. I think we all thought this was getting to. Tyler Van Dyke's going to take the job. Today, we finally started to see that happen. Now, again, Coach Luke Fickell, afterwards, after practice, he was pretty clear on saying, we'll see. But I think it was pretty obvious to me that this has become a Tyler Van Dyke job. Am I higher or lower on the group after seeing them? I think I'm a little higher because, again, I think for the most part, Van Dyke has avoided some of the bad throws, and he's been better on the ground than I thought he would be. Maybe Metoyer has gotten some good reps. They were actually planning on working him into the twos a little bit today, and it just didn't quite happen, I think, based on how they started. So I think I'm a little higher. I think the quarterback room did what they had to do. You can see that the talent there with Van Dyke, and I think there's a dependable and reliableness with Locke that you're okay with it if you have to turn the lock at some point in the season. I think that's going to be okay. I think he's a better quarterback than he gets credit for. Certainly has a better arm than he gets credit for. So I think it's okay. I don't know what else to say about it because I don't think it was perfect, but it's so hard to judge because I think the defense was giving them a lot of issues. The offensive line had some issues with blitz pickups today. The receivers have some issues getting open against the corners. So in some sense, I'm not sure how much more the quarterbacks could have done. So yeah, there's your starter, I think, for the opening game. I think it's Tyler Van Dyke. I think he solidified himself. I think this was a true competition, by the way. I know there's some people who were a little doubtful that I think this is a true competition, which is probably the best for Tyler Van Dyke. He earned it, which you're going to see that in the locker room. You're going to see that with the teammates. He went out and he earned that job. And yeah, I think it's going to be his now. Now we'll have to see. We have another week of practice. We'll see if he continues building on that. Like, this is important. Got to keep building on that. But I've been mostly encouraged by what we've seen from them. We're going to take a quick break here. We're going to come back, talk about what I thought was the stars of the practice, the scrimmage today on Sunday. I think it was the linebackers, the pass rush. We're going to talk about those guys and a familiar face back in the fold. That's coming up next on Locked On Badgers. But first, a quick break for our friends of the show over at eBay Motors. eBay Motors is the number one source if you need any type of car part, and we all occasionally need a little help with our ride or dies. If you need any type of car part, go over to eBay Motors. The right parts, the right fit, the right prices. They will hook you up. Over 122 million parts for anything you might need for your car. You need an antenna, you need a roof rack, maybe a tailgate. Get some carburetor work, spark plugs, wheels, tires, hubcaps, whatever it is. I'm not a car guy, but I know where you can find the things that car guys need, and that's over at eBay Motors. The right parts, the right fit, the right prices. You get better inventory, cheaper prices. You can shop from home, get delivered right to you. Why would you make life harder on yourself? Don't do that. Make it easier. Go to eBay Motors. Keep your ride or die alive over at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions do apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers over at ebaymotors.com. All right, let's talk linebackers. I thought they were the stars of the practice. What did they do this offseason, right? What was the mission? Like, if you're a general and you're about to embark on a campaign, you set a goal. Like, my goal is to take this city, or my goal is to fend this line. This offseason, the Badgers said, the Badgers coaching staff, the recruiting department, the general manager, like the entire football operation said, we have to revamp the linebacker room. And boy, did they. And I'm telling you, after watching them all week, mission successful. John Pius had a great day today. He had back-to-back sacks in one sequence. There's moments where the athleticism is just so obvious. And you can tell watching practice. Obviously, you can't hit the quarterbacks in practice. And there was a sequence where Pius came off the edge, gave an inside move to Kevin Haywood. I forget who else was there. But yeah, got inside, and he just would have murdered a quarterback. And obviously, they have to let up. And you can tell afterwards, he's like, "Ugh." That would have been it. That would have been a big hit. He looked really good. Leon Lowry, I thought, looked really good today. Jaheim Thomas really flows with the running game. He cleans up a ton of stuff, hits hard. I've been really impressed with his ability in the run game. It was great to get Chaney back. He looks explosive, fast. I think he gives you some of that interior pass rush, that interior pop that a guy like Chris Orr used to give us. Certainly not the physicality of a Chanel, but gives you that kind of interior pass rush and disruptiveness that some of our former great inside linebackers have given you. I think Chaney's going to have a really good year. Awesome to see him back out there. He looks really explosive, and that's a guy they've talked about a lot. So you add him in. I thought Allegro had a couple really nice moments. Janzi's getting reps with the twos. You still got Daryl Peterson. I mean, Sebastian Cheeks was getting some reps at the twos. I thought he looked pretty good. Sebastian Cheeks is one of the transfer guys that doesn't get talked about a lot because he's probably not going to play as much this year with the other depth pieces. Although the outside linebacker spot has gotten a little thinner with some injuries, but I thought he looked good. It's just a strength of the team type of a unit. Running backs, linebackers. I think you can go back and forth with which one overall has more numbers. Might be running backs ultimately, but yeah, I thought the linebackers looked great today, and they made it really difficult for the offense to get going. Let's talk about Garrison Solliday. So Garrison Solliday, who is a player we certainly haven't talked about much, a player that fans don't talk about much. He is a redshirt junior who's a walk-on from Minnesota a couple years ago, 6'3", about 230 pounds. He looked great today. And I'm not saying like this is the beginning of the Garrison Solliday becoming a staple of the two deep train, but like he was playing in the threes today, had a sack, tackle for loss, blew up another play, and then they put him in at the twos. I think they were like, yeah, this guy's just killing out here. Put him in with the twos, and he just kept going. Had another sack, tipped the ball that became an interception. He was probably the MVP of the game, of the practice today. Garrison Solliday was everywhere, so that was really cool to see. Certainly more depth is always a good thing. He looked the part. That entire unit is just really good. It's stacked with more athletic players than we saw last year. There's probably not an entire unit on the team from last year to this year that's going to look more dramatically different in a good way than the linebacking spot. So that's no knock on what you had there last year. I just think the pieces fit better here. There's more pieces. It's more athletic. Yeah, and you talked in the players returning. The Daryl Petersons will tell you that, right? They'll tell you like this unit's really good, and they've been able to revamp it. So I thought linebackers were really good. Offensive line struggled a bit. There were a lot of blitzes thrown. Tressel was definitely aggressive. They brought safety blitzes multiple times. Hunter Wohler off the edge gave him some fits. Austin Brown came off the edge. Preston Zachman came off the edge. Middle backer blitzes with Jancy, definitely with Chaney, with Allegro. They were bringing edge pressure. I mean, they were really mixing it up. They were aggressive. They were mixing up looks. They were, they were causing some issues. But again, you're going to face that this year, right? Like this is not the only defense that'll do that. Certainly Iowa's not that type of team, but Oregon will mix it up. We'll have to see what UCLA or USC will do with UCLA's defensive coordinator. But yeah, other teams are going to throw exotic blitzes at you, and you got to be able to pick it up. It was a bit of a struggle at times today. Now, Riley Mahlman didn't play. Riley Mahlman was in a yellow no contact jersey. After practice, Luke Fickell said he could have gone. Not a big deal. We expect to get him back soon. But him not playing is a big deal. Like if it were a regular season game, it's a big deal because Kevin Haywood's, he's a freshman, and he looks as good for a freshman outside of like Orlando Pace as you could look. He looks great for a freshman tackle, but he's still a freshman, right? And it felt like not having Mahlman there just creates kind of a chain effect of, you're just not good across the five. So the defense kind of feasted on that a little bit. And then in the two deep, I mean, you move Mahlman from the twos to the ones because you're not going to play him on both lines. Suddenly you have 3 or 4 guys on that number 2 offensive line that are, they're young, they're inexperienced, and it was just a bit of a slog. That's how we would put it. The offense had a bit of a slog today. There was kind of a shift. I'm kind of curious if this was intentionally planned before practice or if this happened during practice. So the ones versus ones, which is where they started, the number 1 defense won those reps. They corralled Van Dyke in the pocket. They didn't allow much in the running game. They had great coverage. They won those reps handily. And at some point, about halfway through practice, they went ones versus twos. So Tyler Van Dyke in the number 1 offense going up against the number 2 defense. That's really when that number 1 offense started cooking. So I don't know if that was pre-planned, like they had planned to go ones and ones for a while and then ones versus twos, or if they just said, we got to get the offense moving. We got to get a little momentum. So let's go ones versus twos. I'm not sure how that played out, but that was kind of the game script for the practice today. I do want to point out again, pressure. Our secondary looked good again. Like there were a lot of plays where Locke or Van Dyke, especially early in practice, would have to buy time, roll out, try to find a secondary option. I think the secondary is a strength this year. How much of that is our receivers at times being unable to separate? How much of that is, the Longo still not showing the full bag, right? Not utilizing Tretch and Pauling in certain ways to scheme open easier looks. I think there's some of both. Like I do think they're keeping obviously some things under wraps a little bit. They're still working on some things, but I also think like our secondary is good and our receivers at times have struggled to separate against the really good secondaries. So I think it's some of all of that. Running game was okay today. I do want to highlight Cade Yacamelli. Like I don't know how Coach Spalding, Coach Longo, Coach Fickle, how they're going to fully divide the reps in this room, because I talked like Chez was back today. I thought he ran really well. He ran decisive. It feels like he has something to prove out there, even though he's the returning veteran. He's the guy that everyone's kind of pinned. It feels like he has something to prove. He ran physical today. We've talked about Tyree Walker, how good he's looked. He got a bit of a break. Jackson Aker, we've talked about. There is definitely a role for him. They used him as kind of a power back near the goal line. Like he's going to play. Luke Fickle after practice said we got to get both these freshmen reps. And then Cade Yacamelli today had maybe the best day of all the running backs, I thought, catching the ball really well. He had a great run off the left side where he kind of broke through, off the right side, sorry, where he broke through and put a move on Hunter Wohler to get around Wohler to the outside and pick up 15, 20 yards. I don't know. I felt like I had a pretty good read on the running back room. I still think it's going to be Tyree and Chez and Tyree. Aker's going to get reps because he gives you something unique. He gives you some power. You can lead block with him. Then you still have Yak, you have Dylan, and you have Darian. I don't know how they're going to fully divvy that up. I still think one of those freshmen carves out a role. I don't know if there's enough reps for both of them to do it, but I know Coach Fickle said he wants both of them to play. But at some point, man, unless you're going like old school Nebraska triple option, we're going to run the ball 60 times, like you're not going to have enough reps for all of them. And I'm very fascinated with how they're going to break that apart, because I thought all week, all camp that I've been able to see, the running backs have looked really good. And I think that's probably one of the strengths of the team. All right, let's take a quick break there. We're going to come back with a bunch of news and notes, other players that stood out, some individual efforts that I thought we should highlight. That's coming up next on Locked On Badgers. But first, a quick break for our friends of the show over at FanDuel. FanDuel remains the number one sports betting sportsbook that we use, the official sportsbook of Major League Baseball, the official sportsbook of the Locked On Network. And they're here for you all year long. That's the great thing with FanDuel. Like, I love sports, you love sports, we love sports. Otherwise, what would we be doing here? But summer's not the busiest, sportsiest time of the year, right? College football's not here. NBA's over with. The Olympics just wrapped up. We're kind of like waiting and biding our time. Baseball's here, which we love, but not a lot else going on. FanDuel gives you Boost or Bonus daily all summer long to keep you engaged, to help continue spicing up your sports life. That's why they're so awesome, because they give a crap about the sports fan. That's what they're here for. That's what they do. Great, easy payouts, user interface, futures, parlay, spreads, teasers. It's all over there over at FanDuel. And they have something for everyone all summer long. Like I mentioned, head over to FanDuel.com, make the most out of what's left of your summer. FanDuel's the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball and the official sports betting partner of the Locked On Podcast Network. Okay, let us talk here about some of the other players that I thought stood out, other moments. I'm going to call this segment This and That. Turnovers. A couple careless turnovers in this one. And we talked about last year, the turnover margin for the Badgers was basically zero, right? They have to be plus turnover margin with the schedule they have this year. They have to be. So Pauling lost a fumble late. You could tell how ticked off he was. He was banging on the turf with his arm. But yeah, that's your best player. You can't lose a fumble. We had a fumble from Atuka. They were running an option to the left-hand side. And Avery Mettoyer rolled out, pitched it to him. Atuka had enough time to get it, turn his shoulders upfield. I couldn't see who forced it, but that was a fumble. You had two interceptions. You had Owen Arnett getting one that he stepped in front of on a slant against Locke. And then you had that guy, Garrison Solliday, getting his hands up, batting a pass down. That went to Owen Arnett in center field. 4 turnovers. And there was another one that was a little iffy. So Locke was rolling out. They might have had a sack. I'm not sure, but the play extended. Locke kind of threw it away, and that ended up going for a pick too. To Braden Moore got that one. So I don't know if that one would count because I think that probably would have been a sack and he wouldn't have got that throw off. But even still, like, that's a bad habit. Like, if you're going to throw it away, get it out of bounds. So a little sloppy in that sense. Now, some of that's defense, right? A couple of those fumbles forced were hits. They were physical players coming up playing physical football and jarring the ball loose, and that's great. You know, the tipped ball that Arnett picked off. That's a defender getting his hands up. You like seeing those things. You like seeing the disruption, but yeah, you got to offensively can't do it, right? Can't do it. One thing I liked down in the red zone drills towards the end, and we talked about this could be the role for Jackson Aker. They were using him as a power back, just up the middle, up the gut, use your physical strength and power it in. And the first time he was stuffed, they give it right back to him. He got into the end zone, touchdown. I think you're going to see some of that this year. Now, it could be Walker. Walker didn't play today. You know, Walker was getting a bit of a break. But that could also be Tywee, or that could also be Jackson Aker. I mean, because he can give you some of that with that former fullback kind of mentality. Thought some guys that stood out: Garrison Solliday. Talked about him. John Pius talked about him a little bit, but let me reiterate: I thought this was the best I've seen him. A couple sacks, really impressive. Jake Chaney, you know, you can almost see the energy bouncing off of him. Getting him back out there, he looks like peak physical shape. I can't wait to see what he does this year. I thought Aker had a good day. Hunter Wohler, let's highlight that for a second. I thought he had a really good day. They used him a lot in blitzes off the edge, being disruptive. You know, he's a guy that look for him to have a couple sacks this year. Look for him to force a couple fumbles this year. I thought he had a really good day. Jackson McGowan caught a touchdown from Van Dyke. Or from Locke, caught a touchdown from Locke in one of the end zone periods where he just kind of kept working, right? There's a bit of that scramble drill where Locke broke containment and, you know, McGowan kept working, kept running, caught the touchdown. I thought that was nice. Also had a nice pass reception for about 20 yards near the sideline earlier in the practice. So I thought he was starting to show some things, which was nice, right? The former LSU tight end, and certainly at a spot where the Badgers could use some playmakers to step up. So I thought he played well. Couple times, for one of the first times we've really seen that I've seen, at least this last week, is showing a lot of tempo, really trying to get moving after a big play, getting back set, getting it snapped in 10, 15 seconds. It was nice to see some tempo from the offense. Tretch had a couple nice plays, caught a touchdown in the back of the end zone against Owen Arnett. I talked about Cade. Owen Arnett, let's talk about him. Like, maybe the most under-talked. He's a really solid little player. In the 2D, makes plays, had really nice awareness on an interception he got where he undercut the zone. It's a good player. Like, if the depth chart had to get to that point and Owen Arnett had to come in, I think you feel pretty comfortable with him being able to play and not getting exposed. So the more depth, the better. Good practice from Owen Arnett. A lot of situations using, we talked about Jackson Aker in the backfield, also using Riley Nowakowski in the backfield with Chez, you know, a little bit of, again, that physical look. You can put those guys in the backfield, lead the way with Chez. You can put them in the backfield, motion them out, and then throw a screen, receiver screen behind them. They did that with Tucker Ashcraft a little bit. You can also use those guys in the backfield and just use them as essentially another blocker, an offensive lineman, right? If you want to get a little more pass protection. Nowakowski and Aker give you something that's not going to get talked about a lot this year, but give you something a little different this year. And that was kind of the practice. I thought it was defense. My big three takeaways, it would be defense one. I think the pressure is going to be real this year. I think the secondary is going to be real this year. The running back room, that battle continues with Cade having a really good day. And then obviously the other big takeaway is Van Dyke. I think he finally looks like he officially moved into that number one role. Can he continue building on it? I've been mostly impressed with what we've seen this week. So I think the Badgers can do pretty well with this version of Tyler Van Dyke. On Wisconsin, really do appreciate everybody. When you're done here, go check out Locked On College. Go check out our Locked On College Football podcast, 24/7 stream. It's all there. Got you covered with NIL, conference realignments, all the biggest stories with the college football world is right there on our Locked On Podcast Network. On Wisconsin, and we will talk to you later.